Welcome back to The Healthy Writer, where creativity meets wellness. Today we'll be discussing 5 more ways to quit maladaptive daydreaming. One of the most effective mechanisms I found to curb maladaptive daydreaming is meditation. And I know in these kind of lists, meditation comes up again and again as something we should do. But I think particularly for maladaptive daydreaming, it can be extremely effective because it's basically the antithesis. Is that how you say that? Antithesis? Antithesis? That's the second one sounds wrong, but the first one doesn't necessarily sound right. Either way, meditation is basically the opposite of maladaptive daydreaming, in that meditation is all about tethering yourself to the present and reality. And so when you're breathing deeply or following a guided meditation, it's against drifting with those daydreams. I tend to prefer guided meditation, perhaps because of my daydreaming tendencies. I find it easier to hold on to someone's voice and follow that along with the meditation as opposed to, following the breath, which, people benefit from as well. I recommend trying both ways and seeing what resonates with you. I am going to have more meditations on this channel. I currently have one about finding your dream home. But on YouTube, there's tons of meditations out there that are guided. If you type in 5-minute meditation or 10-minute meditation, you'll find a slew of guided ones. So wherever you look, there are meditations out there for you. The second one is limit your triggers. I believe we talked about this in the previous video as well, but I'd like to go a little more extensively here. Basically, it's figuring out what your triggers are and having really specific alternatives. Because maladaptive daydreaming is a creative kind of exercise, you get to be kind of creative with the solutions as well. You can limit the amount of music you listen to. So sometimes, I'll say I'll just listen to 3 songs, or I'll dance while I listen to music, so I'm less likely to be kind of thinking about other things as I'm doing that. And then, or you can set an alarm for how long you'll listen to music. You could say, I'll listen to music for 15 minutes. So maybe during that time, you're giving yourself permission to daydream. On the subject of triggers, you can look at which emotional triggers might be prompting more daydreaming. For me, I know if I'm more stressed or anxious, or maybe in periods of being more triggered, I'm more apt to maladaptive daydream, which, as a reminder, is a form of dissociation. So that makes total sense, right? If we examined that, human in pain doesn't want to deal with the stressors in their life, so they dissociate from their body by thinking of things that are soothing. It makes sense. There's no shame in having something that is so logical, if you think about it that way, right? So recognizing those emotions and then figuring out other coping mechanisms. So in that case, instead of maladaptive daydreaming, I can meditate, I can take walks, I can exercise in other ways, I can do yoga, I can take a nap, I can draw, I can write, I can journal. Write journal sounds the same, but I was thinking about like poetry or another form. I can call a friend. See, that's like 9 other options, as opposed to maladaptive daydreaming that are likewise soothing. This next tip is to stay busy and make plans. This one is also about knowing your triggers, which I talked about in the previous video. For me, I know if I have more flexible days or if I'm more isolated, then it's easier for me to drift off because maybe there feels like more permission. That's not to say in days where I have a lot to do, I don't drift. Sometimes I do. But if you have a more structured day, even if that's just having a very specific to-do list, and I like to make to-do lists that are kind of granular, like, all right, wake up on my to-do list and shower, get dressed. Those are the things I do every single morning. And even though I do them every single morning, I find relief in writing them down because then it gets to the next part. And then that might be breakfast, and then that might be coffee. And then I'll try to think of what the 3 most important tasks of the day are. And then, you know, if I write them down, then I'm more apt to follow those. The other thing is, if you know that you daydream maladaptively when you have more time or more privacy, then try to orient your days around people. In the past, I've had like reading parties with friends when I know I've had like reading assignments I've had to do and that otherwise I might get distracted and not do. And that has helped me a lot too. Basically, by setting yourself up in situations that make daydreaming less feasible, you're giving yourself more opportunity to be present with activities and other people. Number 4 is to really examine what your maladaptive daydreaming is giving you. You know, when we maladaptive daydream, it's often to fulfill some sort of absence in our life or some kind of need. I find when I'm alone, I tend to daydream more. That doesn't mean I daydream all the time when I'm alone, because I'm alone quite frequently, and especially more so with the pandemic. But clearly, in times of extreme isolation, the maladaptive daydreaming is serving social functions for me. And so, a few years ago, I went to Europe on my own. I was there for several months. And during that time, I recognized I'm good for like a day and a half. I don't really need other humans. I can get by, I can read, I can write. But if I got to 2 days where I didn't really have rich conversations or even just minor conversations with other humans, I started feeling like mentally sick. I just felt like a little less focused on the things I was doing. I felt more disconnected. And so I kind of made a rule for myself, okay, you can have this day alone, but the next day you have to go into the city, whichever city I was in, and try to find people. And a lot of the times I had the blessing and the fortune to find people that kind of matched that timeline. And some of those people I still talk to today, and they're really nice friends. If you had to examine what you're gaining from these daydreams, what are recurring themes? I don't know if any of you ever saw the movie Precious, but that movie is a great example of maladaptive daydreaming. In Precious, the titular character goes through life having daydreams that are elaborate about her being famous and on talk shows and getting a lot of love and adulation, which are clearly answering needs that aren't being met in her real life. In the beginning of the movie, she's being abused. And, sorry, I just remembered the scene. It was a really awful scene. So in the beginning of the movie, she's being abused, and it's clearly, it's such a contrast between her real life and her daydreams, and you can see why this character is moving to this extreme daydreaming, because her life is misery in the beginning. If you have similar daydreams, what are these daydreams actually saying? What are these daydreams expressing that you're not receiving in your daily life? Is it that you don't feel fulfilled vocationally? Is it that you don't feel fulfilled in your relationships, or creatively, or financially, or in some other, way? If you don't feel fulfilled with your job, can you start looking for new jobs? If you don't feel fulfilled creatively, how can you incorporate daily creative tasks? If you don't feel fulfilled in your relationships, what can you do about that? Because there are things that you can do. Number 5 is to self-examine through journaling. So take a few pieces of paper and a pen and make a list of your most frequent, recurring daydreams. What are the themes? Do you maladaptive daydream about relationships, fame, job opportunities, creative opportunities, travel, drama? What are these things saying about your life? If it's about relationships, when was the last time you went on a date? If it's about fame, what does fame represent to you? If it's a job, what are you trying to gain from that job? Is it financial return? Is it some sort of self-esteem boost? Is it collaboration or community? What creative opportunities can you make for yourself now? If it's travel, what mini trips can you plan, or can you save for larger ones or enter travel contests? If you're craving drama, are you bored? What is it about your life that isn't answering kind of that need? At the base level, we all have similar needs, but maladaptive daydreaming reaches at those needs in very individualized ways. So if you can really break down those daydreams and look at what exactly your mind is asking for, then you're more likely to be able to give it to yourself in real life. And then you wouldn't have need for maladaptive daydreaming as a coping mechanism because the need is fulfilled. Let me know in the comments if you found this video helpful, if the stuff I discussed in this video makes sense, and if you have any tips from quitting maladaptive daydreaming or curbing it, let me know in the comments below, and maybe I can include it in the 3rd video if there is one. So thank you so much, all of you, for watching this video. As always, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. Take care, y'all.